I'm back today with my very best friend in the whole world, Mary Cato, and I'm going to let her introduce herself and tell you a little bit about her, just in case you're kind of looking at me funny because it's called Birthing While Black.
Hey guys, so I'm Mary, and yeah, I'm sure I get that a lot. I get, a lot. I am biracial. My mom's white and my dad is black, and I just came out on the very lighter side of that. And I was adopted and raised by two white people. So I am a transracial adoptee, a TRA, and that's kind of a little bit about me in a quick nutshell.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing. And today we're going to talk about her story of, being pregnant and giving birth while in college. So, Mary, kind of tell us a little bit about, your pregnancy and all the crazy things that happened throughout the pregnancy.
So it is a little crazy story when you piece everything together and going through it. I didn't realize that it was crazy at the time. And so I was 21 when I found out I was pregnant. I was a junior at NC State and I was home in Wilmington when I took the test and I found out for Christmas break. And so when I got back to school, I confirmed the pregnancy with the health center there, and then they referred me to an OBGYN in town. And I went to the OBGYN and they did an ultrasound. And I remember going into the room, the billing room, and the nurse explaining the schedule. And, this is going to be the bill based on your insurance. And mind you, at this time, I had health insurance. I was covered under both NC State student health insurance and my parents' health insurance at the time. And so through my health insurance, this is your bill, this is what's going to be. And I remember her saying to me multiple times, we do not take Medicaid. We do not take Medicaid. Just so that you know, we don't take Medicaid. And at the time, I really wasn't quite sure why she was saying that to me. I wasn't on Medicaid, so I didn't, I really didn't even know that was an option for me because I didn't know that there was pregnancy Medicaid and regular Medicaid and different options. But she kept saying it to me multiple times. We do not take Medicaid. This is the plan. You have this long. If we see you again in the office, you have to sign this contract, and signing the contract says you're aware that we don't take Medicaid, no matter if you're an established patient or not. And so, in talking to my dad, he had wanted me to have a doctor in Raleigh because at this time I was still in school. So going back to Wilmington 2 hours, he wanted me to be safe and have a doctor in Raleigh because chances are at the time it could have been high that I would have had my child in Raleigh. And so I was doing everything in Raleigh because that's where I was and I was in school. And when I went to, I don't, am I allowed to say specific names of places? I don't want.
That's totally up to you. You probably don't want to.
So, so there's a rather large healthcare system in Raleigh, and when I went there for the tour, I I was not treated like the other women who were there with their husbands, and I was at the time, I didn't even recall it too. I was the only person of color there. And my boyfriend couldn't be with me because he was in school in Fayetteville. So I had I had to be in school and he had to be in school. So now I am the young, single, non-white person in this group, and everything was catered to me in terms of, and I say catered in a catered to me that we would ask questions, or the questions would look to me like if my partner was there to support me, and it would kind of be like all eyes would go to me, like, do you have a partner to support you? Is your partner going to be with you in the room? We can talk about how we do it. um yeah, I I don't understand why he wouldn't be. And then the nurse there, or patient coordinator, whatever she was
Mhm.
probably the first person that brought up to me, have I thought about adoption? And as I mentioned quickly in the beginning, I personally am adopted. I'm very aware of adoption, and I was very confused as to why she would ask me. Here I am in a birthing class. This is a class, this is for expected mothers, this is for preparing for your birth at this hospital. This is all of that. This is not a class where you thinking about adoption. I No. Um, and she didn't answer further. She left it alone. It was just, have you considered adoption? And then as the pregnancy went on, and I would go to my my visits, and again, this is now where I am paying, not out of pocket, but my insurance paying, my copay at this OBGYN's office. I'm not on Medicaid. I'm paying just like any other patient. I was asked by the nurse, and oh, this is so great that you're having this baby. Have you picked a family? You're doing adoption, right? Um, no, ma'am.
Mm.
And she was very uncomfortable and just like, oh, okay, making notes on the chart and left. And I couldn't understand why people kept asking me if I was going to put this baby up for adoption, and what I was presenting by going to birthing classes and going to my OBGYN appointments, that I was going to give this baby up for adoption. And then I had a very easy pregnancy, but I did have one time where I think it was just the stress. I was still in school, and NC State, if any of you have ever been there, it's kind of a big school. And um, I I would I would walk around a lot in those hills. So I think it was kind of stress. And I had to be admitted to the hospital one time for um, my baby. His heart rate was kind of fluctuating funny. So they had suggested that I go on bed rest for like a week. And so I had to go home. And when I went home, that's when, my dad was like, well, now we should probably look into getting a doctor here. And because the way insurance is set up, you can't have two OBGYNs.
Mhm.
And so I ended up getting Medicaid for pregnancy. And when I went to my very first appointment, one of the first questions was, are you considering adoption? And then I had, when I further asked about this, because I brought up now, well, why does everybody keep asking me that? And they're like, well, you're really young, and you're in school, you have so much life could offer you. You could really give this baby, like, there's so many couples that would love this baby and give this baby a better life. And especially with my personality and being young, I didn't really know what to say to that. I even thought about it. Maybe they were right. Like, what? I'm 21. I don't have my degree yet. My boyfriend does not have his degree yet. What are we doing? We don't have a plan. Is this really the smartest thing for us? Um, there are all these people out there that want babies, and um, but there was just something, whether it was my background or adoption was never really an option for me. And then, but with everybody started to say it over and over again, it felt like I was being selfish. It felt like I wasn't really thinking through my choice, and that I should really be thinking more about the baby, and being thinking about giving him a life that I couldn't give him currently, because I was 21 and in school, and I didn't have anything to offer. And it was just kind of this continual cycle of every time I would go into a, an appointment, adoption was brought up in some way.
So, looking back on that now, why do you think that they continue to bring up the issue of adoption for you?
I absolutely believe because I was a young woman of color. And I say of color because kind of in the beginning and how I have to explain myself a lot. I get Hispanic a lot. I get Pacific Islander a lot. Um, I am an actress, so I live in this bubble of ethnic ambiguity. So either way, whether it was because they knew that all they knew is I wasn't white.
Mhm.
They knew that I wasn't white. And then obviously when you look on my chart and like, oh yes, this is like she's black and there are all of these homes that would, give this baby a better life. Um, I absolutely believe it's because and now my parents and I'm going to be very honest, I do not believe that this would have been brought up if my parents had been with me. Again, I was adopted by two white people, and if my parents had been with me in the appointments, but why would they be at this point? I was 21. Like I'm
Mhm.
not bringing my parents to doctor's appointments.
Right.
Um, but I was never treated this way when my parents were in appointments with me. So when I was
Mm,
younger, it was my race or my class was never brought up.
mm,
And now all of a sudden, it is assumed that I must not have the means to support this baby and that other people could do it better. So that I should I should be thinking that. And I, I have white friends who have been in similar situations and now as I'm older and talking with them that these things were not brought up to them um, at all. And
mm,
so, what could be the difference between, because it wasn't our age and it wasn't our marital status. And in fact, if you look at the first example, when I was in the private OBGYN office, you can't even now tell, you can't even put that on me being on Medicaid because I wasn't.
mhm.
And I was paying, I was paying my bill just like any other pregnant woman was paying their bill. And so they had no idea of, or no assumption of an idea of my financial background. So all they knew, the only difference they knew was I wasn't white.
Hmm. Wow. Okay. So now we're going to move into your birth story. And I just want to warn you guys, it gets a little bit more crazy. um, so when you're ready, explain to us kind of how everything took place for you.
So I ended up having my son in Wilmington. So I am in the hospital and I, having been seen almost exclusively by interns at this point as well, um, because that is just how the system is set up. If you are on Medicaid, you see interns.
Mm,
Okay. They have to learn. It's a teaching hospital, you know. Um, and the the birth was, they thought it was going to be very quick. He was coming very quickly, and then all of a sudden he just kind of stalled
mm,
for an hour and a half, and so things were kind of getting a lot more stressful on me, my blood pressure and my air, and on him because he was in my birth canal and he was kind of stuck, and the vacuum was, they had tried the vacuum, they had put a little heart monitor on his head, and he just was not coming out. And so it was kind of crazy and stressful. And then finally, when he came out, so I say that because this wasn't just, oh, some pushes. There had been some stress in the room. We were worried about his heart rate. We were worried about what's going on because it was taking, he should not have been in the birth canal position the way he was for so long. And they were considering an emergency C-section. These things were flying around in the room. And so when he was finally out, I had not held him. They took him out and they had to put him on, because he was breathing. They had to suction him and all of these things. And a nurse came over, and I remember looking at him. I have not held him. And the nurse had a clipboard, and she said, "So what are we doing for birth control?" And and
What?
I was just, huh? Like, birth control? This is birth. And that was really what I was saying. Like, that's how I was talking. What? Huh? What? But I said to, and I gathered my words to say, but I haven't even held my baby yet. And she was like, "Oh, I know, but while you're here on the table, we just want to know what you're choosing for birth control." And I was completely, I guess the hormones maybe took over because I'm typically not. I just yelled at her, and I was like, "I just pushed a baby out of my vagina. That's birth control. I don't want to do this again. I'm good." And so she kind of left it alone, and she left. And they wrap him up, and they let me hold him for very quickly because they tell me he has to go down to NICU. He's okay, but his lungs and some things, so they just need to go check on him. And my boyfriend is sitting next to me, and as the nurse is handing him to me, she looks at me, she looks at my boyfriend, and she looks at my son, and she says, "Is he the father?"
Okay. So wait. So first they ask you about birth control before you hold the baby. Then they
Before I have
give
not
you
held him.
your baby and say, "Is he the father?" in front of the father.
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
And it could be, now, if it matters or not, but my baby daddy, my now husband, but at the time, is light. He's not as light as me, but he's light. And my son was born, and if anybody knows anything about, I don't know, science and melanin and how babies come out, they're typically pretty light, and their color doesn't come in immediately. And so my son was very, very, very pale. He was very pale. But wait, and now if you're thinking about it too, in the story, he also didn't have good airflow and function. There were other things going on with him that would affect his color at the time. And so simply by looking at his color, by being very light, you're going to ask me in front of this man who's are you sure, is that the dad? Ma'am, what? And then, now granted, again, I've never done this a different way, but there was a very large procedure where he was asked multiple times if he's sure he didn't want a blood test. And he had to sign, it was called like an affidavit of parentage, that he denied a blood test. And just to be in the situation where, how incredibly unprofessional, right?
Right.
Like, how, huh? What would even, what thought would even come into your mind to say that to a patient? Even if it did, even if the thought did come into your mind, that you actually said it out loud.
Right. Wow.
So, um, so in however everything being very quick, but then stalled and then being quick, I had I'm sorry, there we go. I'm trying to fix my camera. I had a second-degree tear. And so, as a doula, it's not a horrible tear.
No.
It's not a horrible tear. And so, I distinctly, now my child is not in the room. He had to be taken down. So I'm in the room, and I'm not by myself, but I have no support person with me. The people in the room are all people that work for the hospital, because my son's father went with him. I wanted him to go with him. So my legs are still in the stirrups because they have, stitch me up. And I was told it would be really quick. It wasn't a bad tear. And I hear, uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Come again now? What? And I remember like slapping the blanket or whatever was over my knees so I could see the doctor. And I'm like, what you mean? Uh-oh. Sorry, it's just a little more complicated than I thought.
What?
But I'm gonna need you not to say uh-oh when you're in my vagina.
Right. That's scary.
So he is down there working for 45 minutes. The attending opens the door to my room and is angry. Where are you? I have been looking for you for a half an hour. This should have taken you 10 minutes. What are you doing? Oh, it was a little different than what I thought. I'm almost done. I'll be right there. And so, and at this time I didn't mention, but I had an epidural. So I can't really feel anything that he's doing. I'm not feeling pain. But now I have heard an uh-oh and an attending doctor tell this doctor, you should have been done in 10 minutes. What have you been doing for 45 minutes? So then quickly, but and now all of a sudden we're done. So we go home and I am in so much pain, but I've never had a baby before, and there's a lot of swelling, there's a lot of things. Of course I'm going to be in pain, and I was not told what to expect. I was not given really clear instructions. And I remember just like, oh, it hurt. It just hurt so badly. And at my I don't know what, like the first appointment after you give birth, them like saying, this this hurts really bad. And like, well, you had a second-degree tear, you're stitched up a little bit, it's going to be sore. So we'll see you in 6 weeks. Oh, okay. It's just hurting so incredibly bad. I end up going to the ER, and the ER doctor obviously doesn't deal with gynecological issues, so calls the on-call doctor. And at this point now, it's probably the first time I have personally seen a doctor who is not an intern. And I have a very, very large hematoma in the cut, or in the so she has to recut me and remove the blood clot was that big.
Oh, God.
And she had to like scrape and pull out pieces of this blood clot and restitch me. So then I can't sit half the time. I'm in so much pain. And I go to my 6-week checkup, and they said that it looks like I had the baby yesterday. I haven't healed at all, not
Mm.
even a little bit. It is still incredibly fresh, and there's there's no way, you know, that it's completely raw.
Mm.
So they send me home with some cream, and they're like, put this cream on it every day. We'll see you again in 6 weeks. I put the cream on it, and in 6 weeks, I come back and it's now healed, but there's significant pain.
Mm.
Significant pain. So now we're at, this is now what, 12 weeks
Mhm.
postpartum. And they just tell me again, here's a different cream. Go home with this. It's like numbing. So as long as the cream is on, it doesn't hurt that much. Sex is impossible.
Mm.
It is excruciatingly painful. Like I no. And even sitting again, I can't sit correctly because of the pain. So going back and forth, and finally at the 6 month checkup, I get again
6 months?
a 6 month checkup. I get an attending to come in and then say, this is not right. There this has not healed correctly. There's too much, there's scar tissue on here. This is not right. We have to cut you again.
Oh my god.
So now I have to be cut again 6 months after my birth. And so they cut me and they promise that they're giving me their best resident. Um, he's like he's like, this is all he does. He is the best at this.
Mhm.
So I get, the medicine, he does that, and then when I'm kind of waking up and he's giving me instructions, he kind of says to me, "And I gave you a virgin stitch. You're welcome."
Wait a minute. Did you ask him for a virgin stitch?
I don't even know what that is,
Mhm.
so I couldn't possibly ask him for that. And I was, I'm sorry, what? And the way he said it was, "You're welcome." And I all I asked for was to be pain free. I did not
Mhm.
ask you to do any extra. At this point, I think it's cosmetic. I think
Mhm.
that's something that you would go, like, it's like a, I don't know. I would even know what doctor to go to ask for that to be done. And so again, on the road to healing, it's not healing how they want it to heal. It's incredibly painful. Like, now I can't even attempt to have sex because even the, like, I can't even put a tampon in without doubling over in pain. So now we are at 9 months postpartum,
Whew.
and they finally say, there's nothing else we can do for you here. We need to refer you to somewhere else. So they refer me to a specific clinic that deals with vaginal pain.
Mhm.
And in one visit, they knew exactly what was wrong, and they were like, they just completely botched your vagina. Like, this should not have been a 9 month process for a second degree tear. And through the whole, and looking back, it was, nobody listened to me. At every step, I was told, you know, oh, it's fine, you're just healing, or this or this. And this. 9 months of excruciating pain with a newborn.
Mhm.
And I mean, at this point, he's not a newborn anymore because he's 9 months old. Um, And because nobody wanted to listen that I was in pain or how to fix me or give me somebody that knew how to fix me.
Hmm. Wow. So at this 9-month appointment, did they actually fix you?
Yes, yes. And going to um it was it was a way again in like not saying specific things, but the clinic was not in Wilmington.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Um so but yes, they finally at that place they had fixed me and I had to go back for no, I didn't even end up going back to my visit because I could tell and then we I called because again it was far away.
Mm-hmm.
And I called and they were like, now if you're not in pain anymore, yes, you can just go to, your OB and have them check it. Um, if you're not in pain anymore. And I wasn't in pain anymore. So I just went to the OB and they're like, yeah, it's fine. And so it
Wow.
was the first time in in 9 months that I wasn't in pain.
9 months. It took 9 months to heal from a second degree tear because somebody decided that they were just going to do some weird stuff down there that should have took 10 minutes, but they let a student handle it.
In fact, and then in doing more research um, as I got more into birthing circles and breastfeeding and things like that, I had
Mhm.
asked more knowledgeable people and was told by many different knowledgeable people that for the most part, second degree tears don't even need stitches.
Mhm.
So they're really, I would have healed on my own without the stitches. It may have taken longer, but it would probably have been more beneficial. But I had spoken to midwives, I had spoken to other gynecologists, I had spoken to women who had personally had second degree tears that had not had stitches or any type of surgery or intervention done. I've spoken to women that had home births with second degree tears and had no other intervention done and healed on their own. So I've spoken to women who had fourth degree tears that healed quicker than I did.
Wow.
I've spoken to women that had a tear from her vagina to her anus and healed quicker than I did. And in case anybody's wondering, all of these women and resources that I had asked were white.
And and I don't want to make assumptions, but after the amount of questioning you and saying, "Oh, do you want to have any more what kind of birth control do you want and is this the father?" One could say that maybe they tried to help you out to keep you from having any more babies.
Well,
Maybe.
I guess kudos to them because it worked because didn't have any more babies. And secondary infertility is tons of fun. Um, I never, and again now in looking back and piecing it together, I never thought about that. And and you bring up birth control again, and it does jog my memory that it was mentioned in every single appointment postpartum, regardless of now. Because I will say, I'll be very honest, I went into my pregnancy very ignorant. I was 21. I didn't know anything about babies and birth, and I didn't
Mhm.
care. Um, so it um, just is what it is, and I do what the doctor tells me, and no question. But that changed after I had my son, and so now that I am getting more educated and putting myself into this world, and at the time I was breastfeeding.
Mhm.
And so I was working with an amazing lactation consultant who was an incredible wealth of knowledge in so many areas. I wasn't supposed to be on birth control because birth control would mess up my hormones for breastfeeding.
Mhm.
And so when I tried to explain that to the doctor, oh well, we can give you the shot, or we can gave me all of these other options, even though I'm telling them I'm not ovulating, I don't have a period. Oh well, you could still get pregnant. Okay, so then I bring in research to show them. But no, all of these things are true for me. I breastfeed, like I nurse my child more than 12 times in 24 hours. I have not had my period. I have not, I'm not ovulating. No, I I can't get pregnant.
Mhm.
But every time, and they would remind me that Medicaid covered, if it was about money, if it's about money, it's okay because Medicaid covers birth control. And they wouldn't listen. That no, I'm telling you it's not money. I'm telling you I'm nursing my son. I don't want these hormones, and when I'm done I would rather look into natural forms of birth control, because I was having I was having hormonal issues anyway. And
Mhm.
so I wasn't I didn't really want like hormonal birth control,
Mhm.
but it was brought up all the time. And I was in a clinic that was specifically for women who were on Medicaid.
Mhm.
So in asking friends in my breastfeeding circles and different, well, does your OB appointment go like this? And then looking at me completely shocked. Like, they were never asked about birth control. They had to ask about birth control. Hey, I, want this. Never was it brought up unless they brought it up in their appointments. And then they got whatever they wanted. So it wasn't like, oh yeah, we can give you a shot and we can give you this. It was whatever they wanted.
Hmm. So essentially, because you were black or looked at as being, a woman of color, whatever they wanted to call you, they did not give you those same type of treatments that your friends were getting when they were going to the doctor's offices.
Absolutely not. And the only time, and oh, this is, I can't believe I even forgot this. So in the midst of me trying to heal, and the reason why I got to see the doctors I got to see was because I happened to become friends with somebody in my breastfeeding, circle,
Mhm.
whose husband was in charge of the clinic. Her husband was the OBGYN that was in charge of all of the residents and the interns in that clinic. So because of that, and me telling her, this is how I've been treated, this is what's been going on, my appointments were changed from seeing the interns to seeing the residents and the attendings.
So, had you not befriended this woman, you may have had to go through the process of healing for a lot longer.
I may have not been healed at all, because where else was I going to go?
Wow.
Or yeah, but even still, and knowing this one, and then getting quote unquote best surgical resident they had, still performing a procedure on me that I didn't ask for.
Hmm. The husband stitch. Wow. 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 And the fact that you walked around with the hematoma.
And that was after my appointment.
Mhm.
So it was there during my appointment and they didn't see it.
How did they not see it? Were they not
I
looking at your vagina?
it was hanging out of my body, and they,
Ooh.
like, when I saw it come out on the table, I mean, I was, and that procedure was so, that procedure was so painful. it was, it was so painful. And to having been told, obviously it had grown since the appointment.
Mhm.
So it could have been taken care of way earlier, but somebody was looking and telling me I was fine. I just had a baby. You know, what did I expect?
Mm, wow. So all of your concerns were ignored. You were given cream and told that you were okay, and you're walking around with the hematoma on your vagina. Wow. That took 9 months to heal because no one listened and somebody decided to experiment with their stitching after you gave birth.
When they didn't have to stitch me at all.
Hmm. Wow. Well, I'm sorry to hear about all of that because I didn't even know about the hematoma. You left that part out.
See, and this is like I forget because it all blurs together.
Um,
um, but like I remember I went to the hospital because and it was a very vulnerable situation for me, and I'll share it. And some people are like, "Oh my gosh, that's gross." At the time, was living with my parents,
mhm.
um, and it was just I was just in so much pain, and I was very swollen. So like in the time that I should have not been, it was sort of intuitive, right? I knew that this isn't right. Like, yes, I just had this baby, but this swelling, it was only on one side. Like
Ooh. Mhm.
this isn't right. So I had nobody else in the house but my dad, and I was just like, Dad, I need you to, is this okay? And kind of just, and he was like, nope, that's not okay.
Oh
You
my
need to,
god.
yeah.
Wow. You're
Mhm.
Oh my gosh, that must have been really bad because I know you would never never ever.
Never. And it was so painful that I could not wait um for my boyfriend to get home, because otherwise obviously I would have had him
Yeah.
look. But I couldn't wait. He was working, and it was, I mean, it was excruciating. I couldn't even hold my, like, because it would just, the pain,
Oof.
and so it was like, so I just and it was a bit, we're going to the hospital right now. We're gonna
Mm.
we're gonna take you to the ER. That's not
Wow. Where was your mom? Was she working?
okay.
Mm. Wow. Wow. That's crazy. And the fact that you had to do that, I'm sure was humiliating, but at the time you
Oh,
didn't care.
exactly. It was like it was extremely humiliating, and now I will never, other than live on, the internet, talk about it ever again. Um, but it was, the whole process was humiliating, because
Mhm.
how many times, I'm up on a table again with my legs open, and I'm in so much pain, and so you think like poking and prodding and the pushing, and like, you know, pap smears themselves, just like any, are not comfortable on a regular basis.
Mhm.
And the amount of times that they had, like, just all of the poking, and it it was humiliating, and it was just excruciating all at the same time. And then to hear these doctors, like, the doctor was called, the ER doctor was like, whoa, this is totally out of my league. You're probably going to be here for a while, because he was really honest. He was like, the OBs take a really long time to come down here. They just do. And so, yeah, they came down, and it was a while, but she was like, ooh, this, so clearly, excuse me, it was so obvious to all of these other people, but I had been in the office. I had already been at my appointment where it wasn't obvious to you, and you let me go home in that much pain and with a hematoma.
Hmm. Wow. This is crazy because you're the second person that's had a hematoma, except yours was on your vagina, and the other lady, she had a C-section, so hers was on the inside. Yeah. And you both like walked around just, yeah, in pain, and nobody cared. Wow. Wow. I'm so sorry that all of that happened to you in 9 months. Like, I didn't realize that it took that long for you to heal, which would make sense as to why you didn't end up coming back to school until later.
I couldn't move.
Mhm.
My original plan, I had my son in August, and my original plan, I had I had one semester left,
Mhm.
because I the way that I had stacked my classes and I had gone to school, I had done summer classes until August. I moved back home like 2 weeks before I had him. Um, and so I was convinced, like, yeah, I had one semester left. I was going to come to school, and I couldn't move, let
Mhm.
alone sit in a car for 2 hours. Well, it would be 4 hours at that point. Um, so I had to change my whole process, that I ended up going and just taking online classes so I could remain enrolled in school.
Mhm.
I didn't need the classes. I like the credits, I didn't need them. Um, and so I had to take them for that fall semester because I was in so much pain. And then I had to deal with it the next, because I wanted to graduate and I wasn't
Mhm.
going to push it off again. And so I would drive and literally have an ice pack. Like, I would sit on an ice pack while I was driving, and I would take um, I would take the ice pack and put it in the freezer of whoever's, apartment or whatever, while I was in class, and then take the ice pack and drive home. Got to do what you got to do.
Wow. You do, but wow, like, wow. That's awful that you had to drive like that and walk around like that and function because people just didn't want to hear what you were saying.
And I mean, I don't want to say to this day I didn't pursue it anymore, but while I was asking, there was no explanation. There was no, even with getting the additional information, and I would come back in and be like, so why was I being stitched up? What about my case was special? Because I also, I'm kind of an eternal optimist, like, especially going through it and the
Mhm.
way I was raised. I would pretty much refuse to believe that I was being treated differently than anybody else. So
Mhm.
even having it in my face that these other women were telling me that that was not their experience, they never experienced anything like that. Um, it was still very difficult for me to accept that I would be treated any differently.
Mhm.
So, in trying to get answers, you know, well, why? Because I'm sure there has to be a reason, right? There has to be a reason. Yes, it was a second-degree tear, but maybe they don't. I didn't have information on how you classified tears. So it was like, maybe it was like a special condition that, you know, to classify tears, it's the length of the tear, and
Mhm.
and that's just it. And so maybe it was because it was a small, but it was really complicated, or like, I would try to rationalize that there had to be some reason why all of these other women had this situation and did not have my experience, but for whatever reason I had this technically low grade tear, but had all these complications. And they would not tell. There was never given, I was never given an answer that, well, yes, because maybe I did have excessive bleeding and that's why I got the hematoma. And so there was excessive bleeding and he couldn't see well. And that was taking him so long because he had to clear the area continuously. No, I was never given that explanation. It was just either ignored or like, well, I don't know, these things happen. But they don't. And that's what I was trying to say to them. But they don't, because they haven't happened. And obviously my sample size was very small. But now, obviously, as we are older and we're here talking about this, we know that that's not true. These things happen to certain women. That's who, they happen to, and they don't happen to other women. And I feel absolutely, and regardless of income or presumed income or whatever it be, because I started my pregnancy fully, you would have no idea, other than I was young, right? I was young and I was unmarried, but I had a health insurance. And so and then to treat me, expect that I would absolutely need to go on Medicaid, and that I should put my child up for adoption for a better life, because obviously I couldn't provide him with a good life. That people aren't seeing what their assumptions are doing. And I really believe, like, these doctors, again, even what the nurse said, that she felt whatever in her, and she felt so comfortable to say that out of her mouth. That's not something, you do with certain people.
Never.
And whether it was because I'm a woman of color, and you assumed that, well, it really wouldn't matter, because really at the end of the day, what repercussions did she have for speaking to me like that? None. And it's not like it was just me and her. There were other people in the room because they were working on my son. There were lots of people in that room. There were at least four hospital staff members in the room that heard her say that.
And not one person reported her or said anything or did anything.
Not one person even flinched to make a, like, you don't say it. And especially a doctor, right? So you would think, and I don't know how hospital structures work, but like I would assume that a doctor would have kind of authority. Maybe I watch too much Grey's, but that to be like, oh no, and immediately remove her from the situation, like that was completely inappropriate. You can't speak to people like that. Like, even another nurse to kind of like, oh no, here, get, like, I'm so sorry, and apologize to, I'm so sorry, this shouldn't have happened, that was really inappropriate. There was nothing, nobody acknowledged that she said anything bad. So that, to me, especially looking back, not in the moment, but looking back, that is a pattern of thinking and action. That is something that you clearly did not do on the fly, because again, I've been in situations, professional situations, things come out, but you're corrected really quickly. Like, this isn't, and that wasn't done. So now you're saying that these people either are used to it or didn't think that anything was wrong with it, because, well, I mean, why not? She's not married. So I guess it's a valid question to ask. But it's not, though, because again, it doesn't matter.
No.
It absolutely doesn't matter. He could have not been the father, and if he was still there, he was the support person that I was choosing to have there. So it doesn't matter.
No. That should have never been said to you. And if it was said to you, who are, 21 years old, And in college, imagine what happens to the high school girls or what's being done to them. So, it's so crazy. And I'm so sorry that all of that happened to you and that I couldn't be there. Why wasn't I a doula then? See?
Because we were 21.
And I didn't care probably at that time.
Yeah.
But
I I didn't care either.
yeah,
At this point, none of that none of that is happening to me. I mean, I can't say that it wouldn't happen to me because who knows.
right.
But my reactions to it are no. No
Yeah.
ma'am, we are not going to have those types of conversations. And now I know how to better advocate for myself
Mhm.
and know certain things. Um, but where do you go when even when you're advocating in that I'm just constantly being shut down, right? No, 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 it's fine. And what can I do? I can't do my own surgery. Like,
Right. Yeah, that seems to be a common theme. Hence why I am now infertile and yeah. Yay. We get to live with this continual problem that's not being addressed. So, thank you for sharing your story, and you'll be back to talk about adoption because that needs to be said as well.
that's yes, that's a fun topic. That that'll be a few sessions, I would probably wager.
Yes. Yes, we're here for it. We have time.
But
uh,
thank you for having me.
Absolutely. It's always a pleasure to have you talk to me at all. But thank you for being here and for being brave enough to share your story. Because I know you guys don't know her, but Mary's not very outspoken. So this is like a big, huge deal. And Joyce, if you're watching, I got her to talk on live TV, well, live internet on these internet streets. So,
which is a big deal because when she told me it was live, I was like, wait, what?
yes.
Mm.
Yes. Yeah, you did it. But she will be back. And please continue to share your stories if you're out there watching because the stories need to be told. Somebody needed to see this today. So thank you, Mary. And thank you guys for watching. We will see you guys next time. Bye bye.
Thank you.